our late arrival. Ed Fitzpatrick, how are you?
How are you doing, Jerry?
And Connie Day also.
Yeah, good morning, Jerry.
And I got our guests here without killing them.
That's right, you did very well, especially the way you drive, Eddie.
I just wanted to say real quick a shout out to the Parma. There was a Parma 5K, Parma pierogi run. They actually had pierogies afterward. I had to run out of there though, couldn't get any. But good job to Council President Sean Brennan. Yeah,
I do,
Parma.
I like it.
It was
Did you bring us some pierogies?
I didn't have time. So, but the run was at Tri-C. They did a beautiful job. It was very, very nice. So, good morning, everyone. Happy 4th of July.
Good morning.
JC was betting that you were going to get here with your hair all disheveled.
I have to be ready for the day.
I know.
But no, not at all.
You didn't bring any pierogies, though.
No problem.
Couldn't wait for them.
Listen here, all the three of us,
Yes.
Eddie and JC and I, we were at a wonderful concert this week, Apollo's Fire. And I love the title. It's called The Greatest Hits of the 1720s. I didn't say the 1920s or the 20s. I said the 1720s. Did you hear that?
Yes.
The 1720s. It was wonderful. And it was at St. Noel's, which was acoustically perfect, I
Oh,
thought.
it was. It's a beautiful venue.
And you know, that's one of the talents of the orchestra is they know how to pick the places to have these things. Now, if you send you or I or JC out to pick a place,
No,
we
that's
probably would be looking in the basement of a pub or something. But they pick churches, and not always Catholic churches either. They're non-discriminatory in that way. They pick some
Very ecumenical.
Protestant churches, Catholic churches, but St. Noel's was perfect.
It was,
We're going to talk to our special guest now. He's a fine fellow. We just met him last week. His name is Hugh Carswell, and he's a very, very interesting man, but his job is the managing director of Apollo's Fire. Welcome to the radio program, Hugh.
Good
Great
morning.
to get up there close to
Good
close
morning.
enough. Well, it's great to have you on the program, and I know we saw you the other night, but since then you went off to Boston, didn't you?
Yeah, we were away in we were in Tanglewood. First time the orchestra played in Tanglewood, which is the most fabulous place. So we were playing.
That's
in
not Tanglewood out here in Geauga County now.
no, slightly further away.
Further away. Tanglewood it's outside Boston, is it?
Well, it's about 140 miles outside Boston. I always thought it was right next door, but no, we had to. Once we landed at the airport, we drove for about 2.5 hours.
Well, now, I just want to give our listeners a kind of quick background. You're quite a musical education. You know that I just see here a graduate of the Royal Scottish Academy of Music, postgraduate study Royal Academy of Music, member of the Royal Society of Musicians, and you have quite a career history. I know if you're like me, I've been Scottish and Irish. We don't like to talk much about ourselves, but sometimes we have to do it. So I'm going to force it upon you now. Tell us about your career history. So let's go back a little bit.
Oh well, sort of. As one of my ex-colleagues used to say, born at an early age. No, actually I've always had an interest in music, but I never studied music at school. I didn't do music as a subject. I just played the trumpet. And my father was a head teacher, and I did suggest to him once that maybe I should try doing music for a living. And he said, "Don't be silly, Hugh. You won't make any money." Mm-hmm. And indeed, how right he was. When I left school, I actually studied dentistry for a year.
Now this was in Scotland,
This was
right?
in Scotland, yeah. I went to school in Paisley, so I actually studied dentistry for a year, but I wasn't really that keen on it. And I wasn't a particularly good student, and then I ended up working for a bank for 2 years, and I got incredibly bored. And just by chance, the branch of the bank where I was working was right round the corner from where the Scottish Academy of Music was, and one of my contemporaries from youth orchestra, he'd embarked on a musical career straight away, and he was always coming in, sort of putting in these fairly hefty checks, because he was getting very good freelance work as a student, to the extent he was running 2 cars.
Wow.
I wasn't, so he said you should give it a go. So I
You have
did.
a bicycle, haven't
So I didn't go to start studying music properly until I was 21, and then I did a postgrad year in London at the Royal Academy, and I freelanced there for a while. Would do West End shows like Jesus Christ Superstar or Evita, and lots of other different work. And then I eventually joined the Ulster Orchestra in 80, and I was there for 25 years.
Now,
in
was
Belfast.
it in when you went to the Ulster Orchestra? You met your wife.
That's correct, yes. Nolene, my wife, she's a
Yeah, you
violinist.
moved to Ireland from Scotland in 1980. Is that right?
Well, I moved from London, actually. I'd been living and working in
Oh,
London.
okay.
So, if you like, Scotland, London, and then over the sea.
And then you took up residence in Belfast.
Yeah, we're
and you've
living
been
in
there ever since.
Yeah. Until,
what was the move like? What was the transformation? Was it a huge difference, or was it?
in terms of
Yeah.
going
You know, like
to...
in terms of the culture was probably very similar. But you moved to Belfast. It was pretty rough times
It
in
was,
Belfast then. What was your impression when you got there?
I think the very first time I ever went to Belfast would have been 1978.
It was a hot city then.
It was,
dangerous.
it was actually. It was really quite. I can remember being sitting in the back of a taxi, and I was just looking out and thinking, why am I here? But it's funny actually. Once you actually sort of realised what you should do, what you shouldn't do, or where you should or should not go. I mean, all of a sudden, I started to enjoy it quite a lot. For instance, if we wanted to go for a drink after a concert, there would be only two places we would go. One was the BBC Club, which would never be targeted for obvious reasons by either side, and then there was another place called Windsor Park Tennis Club, and they were both safe havens where you could go and just lead a perfectly
So the
normal
Crown would not have been that safe those days.
life. No.
or the Europa Hotel. It would not have been safe.
Well,
those
it's
days.
funny. I mean, Billy Hastings, who owns the Europa Hotel, I know him quite well, and he was. I think you would have to sort of commend him on his perseverance, because I think he got a big grant from the European Union to build his
6 times.
what was the most bombed hotel in Europe. Yes, but he still kept the whole thing going, and he's expanded. He's about 85 years
Now
old.
down the street from the hotel is the Opera House, isn't it?
The Grand
Did
Opera
you
House,
were you ever there?
Oh yes, many times.
Yeah. And
Which
so
has just
you and
recently
your
been
wife.
refurbished. We both played there for lots of different shows.
Now where did you meet your wife?
My wife and I actually studied together in Scotland, but we did not. We weren't doing a line at that time. When I eventually arrived over in the Ulster Orchestra in 1980, that's when we started courting.
Now-
And then we got married in 1983.
Now she's a musician also.
Oh yeah,
so
she's a violinist, yeah.
and quite good, I believe.
No, but yes, she's
Very,
not bad.
very, is she a better violinist than you are a trumpet player?
Definitely.
Definitely.
Well, she certainly is now, because she still plays. I mean, I haven't been playing as much since I went into management, although I still enjoy playing the trumpet very much.
I want to come back and talk to you a bit about Apollo's Fire, how you got the job here.
Okay.
So you're going to be a Clevelander for the next few years, for
That's
sure.
that's the plan.
That's the plan.
Managing director, which I suppose is all encompassing. But
Manages everything.
But if you actually sort of, I've really since I've arrived here, actually I've been so impressed with what I've seen already, and you actually have the most a world class musical ensemble which can rival anything. And if you like, because we're at Tanglewood, because we're going to the BBC Proms this coming August, that's a real seal of approval.
And you're also going to Tuscany, aren't you?
Yes, well, Jeanette Sorrell and a smaller group are going to Tuscany. I am not going to Tuscany,
No.
which is a great disappointment.
But the group is.
Oh yes, we're travelling all over.
So tell me about how you got in contact with Apollo's Fire, how you ended up in Cleveland.
Well, I started a chamber orchestra in Ireland in 1999 with a guy called Barry Douglas. He won the Tchaikovsky piano competition. And that was going really quite well, to the extent I packed in full-time playing in 2005 to go into to manage the orchestra permanently. And then we were having some money was starting to get very tight. In fact, money for the arts is very, very tight in Ireland in general. And so I left, I became a consultant. I was doing my own thing for a wee while. And then I was browsing through on the internet, and there's a website called Musical Chairs, which advertises both playing and administrative jobs. And I saw that Apollo's Fire were looking for a managing director. So I put in my application, and about over a year ago now, I met Jeanette Sorrell in London when she was over with the orchestra, and we had a great conversation over lunch for 2 hours. and then 5 hours of Skype interviews and a visit to Cleveland last August, and here I am.
Now, you did, I'm sure you did a little bit of research on
Yeah.
the orchestra and the background. How far back does the orchestra go?
The orchestra has actually been on the go, was started 23 years ago by Jeanette.
1992.
Yeah.
Jeanette started.
Jeanette
yeah?
started it, yeah,
From nothing.
from nothing. And the story of Revolt, it would be much better actually were she to be here to tell the tale, but apparently the Cleveland Orchestra were looking for an assistant conductor, and of the 12 or 13 people they'd interviewed, none of them seemed to be what the orchestra were after. So a gentleman by the name of Roger Wright, who used to work for the orchestra at that time, said to Jeanette, "You're a promising conductor, would you like to come along and meet with Christophe Docdagny, our principal conductor, and see whether, you know, maybe this would be a great opportunity for you." So apparently they went out to see Docdagny at his, he was sitting by his swimming pool. They talked for 20 minutes, and then he looked round at her and he said, the audience would never accept a woman conductor here.
Oh.
So she wasn't very pleased with that, but she quickly came back and said, "Well, my real interest is in Baroque music, and that's what I want to do." Roger Wright then helped her to get some initial funding to get to start doing some Baroque performances, and this is what she's done now.
Now, it is a tax-exempt organization.
Oh, yes,
right?
I have
So
had
anybody
once.
that wants to donate to it can
Oh,
can
yes.
do so. They can fund
Yes,
it.
please, please, please.
Please do. But she's very accomplished musician in her own right, isn't she?
Oh, stunning, absolutely stunning. I mean, actually, you only need to go onto YouTube to actually, if you watch her doing a cadenza in Bach's Brandenburg 5, you'll see virtuosity of the highest order, because that particular concerto, or concerto grosso it's called, because you have several solo instruments. You can actually watch her performing there, and really remarkable technique which she has.
Yeah, the CD is entitled Bach Brandenburg Concertos.
Yes.
I listened to it the other night. It's really great. It's great stuff to listen to. Even if even a kind of a classical ignoramus like myself, really I don't know much about it, but I know what I like when I hear it, and that's it. And this music, if anyone that gets this CD, I think will put it on in your house or in your kitchen, or instead of watching TV, put this on and just listen. It's wonderful to listen to. And it's all, of course, because of Jeanette.
Yeah.
How in the world did she build it up? Are you're going to be the first managing director of it, are you? They never had a managing director. She did it all, did she?
No, they have had sort of managing directors in the past, but I think actually I think when the orchestra was a little bit smaller, then maybe it wasn't as challenging a role. And Jeanette has always been very, very hands-on. So they've certainly been without for the past couple of years that they haven't had anybody, because they actually, when they were trying to recruit, I think they did actually take quite a lot of time. It was like about 7 months, I think, or more, before they eventually agreed that I would be coming out here. But I'm more focused on what my job would be, and what my ambition is actually to make sure that if you have the Cleveland Orchestra, which everybody in this area obviously has heard of, and indeed across the world, I'd like Apollo's Fire to be known in exactly
that
the
was
same
going to be
way.
my next
That's
question. The long-term goals
Yeah.
for it would be what?
That would be, well, that's my ambition, to help Jeanette to do that, because I think she deserves it because of what she's done and because of the talent that she has. So I'm totally focused on trying to spread the gospel for
Yeah.
Apollo's
Now
Fire.
you are much smaller, of course, than the orchestra, and you'd be in what, $2-3 million budget range somewhere
About,
around.
about 2 million. I actually think it should be about between 3 and 4, because if that was the case, we would actually then start to perform on a more regular basis, perhaps more Mozart symphonies, or just works which use bigger orchestral forces, because everybody who performs with the orchestra is paid on a freelance basis. So.
Mhm. And you have people from all over. I was talking to one of the performers the other night, and he told me he came in from Montreal.
That would be right. That would be our leader, Olivier.
Mm-hmm. He lives in Montreal.
He lives in Montreal, which is actually, there's a big hub for Baroque specialists. There's lots of Baroque music being performed there, but as the years have gone on, there has been more and more of the orchestra members have actually chosen to come and live in Cleveland, because the busier the orchestra gets, the more sense it is to be living in Cleveland. So you're actually that's great. That's building up.
So this will give us three major orchestras. It gives the Cleveland Orchestra, the Cleveland Pops Orchestra, and now Apollo's Fire. And I'm sure there are some smaller ones. I think this is the Cleveland Chamber Orchestra also, is there?
Well, to be honest,
There are. I
as
think,
in
I
you
think
couldn't
so.
block, I wouldn't.
I think there are.
Aware of them.
So we are kind of an art city, aren't we?
Well, I haven't ceased to be amazed by the way the arts are supported since I arrived in Cleveland. It's just fantastic.
And you found this, would say, better even in Scotland or Ireland or even England?
Well, certainly, having lived in Northern Ireland, the Ulster Orchestra, of which I was a member, was under a serious threat only about a year ago, and I don't believe they've actually solved all the problems. Whereas if you look at the way that people support the arts here in Cleveland, it's just they're really just you know that they really appreciate what's going on.
I know I don't know if the Cleveland Orchestra, JC, is doing do they do a 4th of July concert? I used to on Public
Yeah, I think
Square.
they
Yes, they did this
I don't think
year.
they are this
Might
year
have been down
because
in
it's all
Blossom.
torn up, I think.
Well, either that, or they might have been doing one.
I
in
moved
Blossom,
it.
I'm not sure.
Did they move? I think they may have moved it someplace
They
else.
did, yeah. They stayed downtown area, but not in public square.
I'm going to come back and talk to you, Hugh, more about the type of music you do.
Yeah.
There's limitations on what.
I think when we were at school, we used to try and busk Quinn the Saints. And just it gradually progressed from there, actually. So, just the American songbook type songs, and I'm very fond of Sinatra and Rat Pack, and it's
Cover it all.
as much as I can.
Yeah. Tell me about Baroque music. A lot of people, I'm sure, looking for a kind of an explanation, but it's a certain period, actually, in classical music, isn't
Yeah,
it?
well, basically, if you could go to, I suppose what would describe as contemporary, just now, and then you go back and you would have the romantic period, you would have the classical period, and then you go a little bit earlier again, and that takes you to the Baroque period, which would take you up to the composers like Bach, Handel,
Vivaldi.
Mozart, Vivaldi, Telemann, and so that is the specialist musical sphere, if you like, for which Apollo's Fire would concentrate on.
You concentrate on those performers.
Yeah,
Now,
maybe
those
go up to Beethoven. I think our 25th anniversary will be the season after next, which is when Beethoven may well feature.
Mm.
Which would be good.
Handel performed in Dublin, didn't he?
The very first of our performance in the Messiah was
The Messiah was in
Dublin.
Dublin, Really?
Yeah.
And I suppose that's why you call this concert the hits of the 1720s, is it? Is that what you call it?
I think it's a fantastic title, actually,
It is.
because Jeanette Sorrell, she always, those Bach's coffee hats, she actually sort of, that music was the really popular music of its time, so it's no different
Yep.
from that which we have.
So the orchestra, though, primarily would be Baroque music.
Yes.
But you do other things too.
Yes, we have our the other arm is actually specialising in Appalachian music. So our latest album has just been released called Sugarloaf Mountain, and it actually sort of traces the origins of Appalachian music. So all our as exiled Scots and Irish travelling across the pond, and then the other influences which actually go on to make up what Appalachian music is all about.
But this, I listened to this CD, and it's called Sugarloaf Mountain, an Appalachian Gathering.
Yep.
And there's some nice stuff on here. The one that we're going to play now is called Farewell to Ireland and Highlanders Farewell. But I see you have another piece on here with the Butterfly and Barney Brannigan. It's really. The reason I know the Butterfly is a lot of the Irish whistle players and flute players have played this. And my son Patrick, who lives in Chicago, he and his friend Alec DeGabriel and Peggy Baker, they recorded it a few years ago. In fact, I might give you a copy of it. You might enjoy it. The Butterfly. It's kind of a classical Irish tradition.
Certainly you will find that there's a very well-known Scottish or Irish jigs and reels. That influence is very much within the CD.
So we'll play this one called Farewell to Ireland and a Highlander's Farewell. And it's Apollo's Fire. Here they are. A few years ago, it was, what was it called, a Celtic
A
Christmas?
Celtic Christmas, yes. It's actually a programme which we're going to take for the second time back to the Metropolitan Museum in New York. And we're going to repeat that programme this coming Christmas time. So it seemed to go down really well, so it makes sense to do that, something similar again.
And one of our local Irish organisations helped out with that, didn't we?
Yes, we did. For the recording, actually, we made was the Irish American Charitable Foundation, which is that's exactly all arts organisations need support from organisations like that.
Like that, yeah. No, we were glad to do it. I'm on the board of that organisation, and we were very happy to do it. Jack Coyne, he was the president at that time. Tom Scanlon was the treasurer, and I think I was the vice president at that time. Now it's changed, the personnel has changed. I think Michael Coyne is now the president, and Sean Hardy is the vice president. So it's an organization that's still very viable in the city of Cleveland, and they always do look for causes such as yours. Yeah, when I was talking to Jeanette the other night, she mentioned to me, she said, I want to thank you for helping out with that. And she says, maybe we'll go back and we'll do some more. But normally that organization just gives seed money. They'll do it one time. But I think maybe for Apollo's Fire, they might be able to be persuaded. We might be able to persuade Mike Coyne to reconsider, especially for a great cause like Apollo's Fire.
Maybe I'll have to be on the phone first thing on Monday morning.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. We'll talk to the powers that be. There's no good talking to me anymore. I have no power there anymore. So.
We'll just have to hope that your influence in the airways will do.
Well, they're a great organisation, I will say that, and they've done an awful lot of good, and they do it very quietly. They donate money very quietly to things like Apollo's Fire, things that improve our community, which I'm sure you will, and we're looking forward to that through the years. It is 11:26 here on the Irish Show on WHK AM 4.
Well, before we go to the proms, the BBC proms in London, where we've got a concert on the 15th of August, and then one in Aldborough on the 16th. We'll be doing the same programme here in North East Ohio. So on the 11th of August, we'll be at Bath Church in Bath, and then we'll be on the 12th of August in Cullis Hall here in Cleveland. Exactly the same programme.
Cullis, is that in Case Western Reserve, Colleen?
Yeah.
Cleveland
Yep,
Student
that's
Music.
right.
So
we'll be doing our programme with children of Bach and Vivaldi, and we will have our featured soloist, a violinist called Alina Ibragimova. She's absolutely stunning. She's
And Jeanette will
fabulous
be playing her harpsichord.
player. She will, yes. That's what we're doing our harpsichord.
How old is that instrument? Is that a new version of an old instrument?
It's not from the 1700s.
No, it's not.
It's been made, but it's modelled on exactly the same.
It looks like it.
And actually, to be honest, I didn't actually realise, but one of the reasons that Bach started to write more for the harpsichord, because there's this huge big virtuosic cadenza in Brandenburg 5, is because you'll actually see those two sets of keys, which meant that one is twice the sound as the other. As loud as the other, so you can then alter the dynamic range. Prior to that wasn't possible.
Do you know what I noticed the other night? There was no amplification of the music at all.
No.
There was no microphones. All she used the microphone was to communicate with the audience. There was no microphones at all, and the music was as clear as could be.
Yeah, well, if you have the right acoustic, like St Noel's Church is an ideal example, then the sound just carries, it projects, and just exactly the right dynamic.
I know you have, your wife has done a lot of work with Phil Coulter, but you have worked with some pretty famous people throughout your career also, haven't you?
Oh yeah, so I can remember actually organising an orchestra for George Benson. That was about the year 2000. As a player, lots of well-known artists, Dame Kiri Takanawa, Lucia Pavarotti.
Mr. Pavarotti.
Mr. Pavarotti was very interesting actually, because his knees were he must have been in an awful lot of pain, and it was an open air concert outside Parliament buildings in Stormont outside Belfast, and to get him onto the stage actually they had to use a golf buggy, which went up a ramp.
Really?
But once he got going, I mean,
He was a bit overweight,
he
wasn't
was
he?
carrying a little bit of extra weight, but once he started singing, I mean, he still had the same old
I
magic.
told him get off that spaghetti.
No, but he was fantastic. But I mean,
Oh.
over a period of 25 years as a professional player, you end up, meeting lots of famous people. And similarly, my wife actually, she's played in orchestras for Andrea Bocelli, for Cliff Richard, for Rod Stewart, obviously Phil Coulter. Oh, they're just, sometimes they just come and go.
You know, she told me though. She says, "Is there any jam sessions, trad sessions around?" She plays the trad
Oh, no,
music
she would do
too.
that. She would do that.
Good
as well,
fiddle player, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, I told her about the several around town. I know there's one over at Stone Man on the first Sunday of the month.
Yeah.
I'd like to get over there.
well, I think she would be.
She'd enjoy
she
it, I
would give
think.
that a go.
Oh, yeah,
She'd
so
give that a
fun.
go.
She lend another level to it. You know,
Yes.
be a concert violinist here playing the old fiddle in a trad group.
Well, it's interesting, but actually on the Sugarloaf Mountain CD, where you can hear what sounds like traditional fiddle playing, but that is actually the lady who's playing that. She's actually she leads a symphony orchestra, but she's actually went away and really studied in depth the traditional side of things.
You had something to do with the with Bill Clinton's visit to Ireland.
Yes, when Bill Clinton made his first historic visit to Ireland, I found myself playing in a little jazz band near Queen's University, which was as part of a reception for him. And I remember we rehearsed all afternoon to see whether we could stop in about 2 minutes. We could actually stop at 30 seconds, but nobody seemed to believe us. And so when eventually we were told that we had to play after 10-minute, 5-minute warnings, we started playing this one tune. And we thought, well, we'll last for like a minute or two. 45 minutes later, we were still playing it. The reason being that the Reverend Ian Paisley would not come into the same room as
Mark McGuinness,
and Jerry Adams, because they hadn't reached remotely an agreement. So President Clinton and Ian Paisley went to another room in the university, but nobody told us. And I'll never forget, the poor old drummer was going, boom, chicka, boom, chicka, boom, chicka. We were having to sort of wipe the sweat
Oh,
from
no.
his brow.
The same song for 45
We did so many
minutes.
different variations of that.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Funny.
Also, you had something to do with the Queen's visit to Ireland.
Yeah, well,
recently.
that was actually it was really amazing actually, because the orchestra which was running, we'd actually got the joint patronage of the Queen and the President of Ireland, and that we got that in 2004. And so when the Queen did arrive, she actually got like a private recital for the Queen and the President and about Prince Philip and 2 or 3 others, and that was all. That was it. Just the orchestra played, but then there was a reception after that, and it was amazing actually, because I found myself in the company of about 4 or 5 British ambassadors to Ireland, all of whom I'd met over the course of my work for this orchestra, which was incredible. So that's gone back since 1999. The first ambassador I met was a guy called Sir Ivor Roberts, and I just thought it was amazing.
Tell me about George Best. Now, explain to people who George Best
Oh,
is.
George Best is a legendary soccer or football player, and in fact he's so famous back in the UK and Ireland that they've even got named an airport after him.
Oh.
There's the George Best Airport in Belfast. But so when he died, it was the equivalent of a state funeral, and the arrangements had to be made very, very quickly. So I was instrumental in actually putting the music together for that with a well-known local singer, a guy called Peter Corey. And I'll never forget actually, as the funeral was coming up into the State Department, the Parliament buildings, Peter Corey had to stand there motionless for about 20 minutes, and all he could hear, he was just getting one note from the harp, and then he had to start this song from Les Mis, and he was absolutely perfect. I would have been terrified.
Yeah. How many Phil Coulter CDs did your wife work on?
Oh wow!
Probably most of them, huh?
Most of them, but over and above that, there was a very popular touring show now called Celtic Thunder,
Oh yeah.
and Phil Coulter was instrumental in producing all these. So you will actually see my wife, Nolene Karsler, her name is leader of the orchestra, the Celtic Thunder Orchestra, on the albums,
Oh.
which is quite an achievement.
Quite
So very proud of her for that.
I'm going to say, hopefully we'll get Nolene to come in
Yes,
and,
well,
and sit around and
And
Talk
maybe
about it, yeah.
get Jeanette to come in also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's the new managing director of Apollo's Fire, an orchestra that I had the pleasure of seeing last Tuesday night at St. Noel's in Willoughby Hills. Fabulous show. If you get a chance to see it, I recommend you do. Hugh, once again, where can people see the show locally? I know it's coming up in Bath, Ohio.
Yeah, we're in Bath Church on the
Get close
11th.
to that mic.
We're in Bath Church on the 11th of August, and then we're in Cullis Hall on the 12th of
Now,
August.
JC, Bath Church, I think you take 77 South, is it?
You would, yeah. There's a Bath exit
It's an exit, I think.
off 77
Is it off
before
77?
Akron.
Before Akron, right?
Righto.
It's great. It's going to be a great concert. Is it similar to what I just saw? Or is it,
Yes.
Yeah.
The only difference is that we actually have a violin soloist, Alina Ibragimova, because she's coming with us to the BBC Proms in London.
So, and once again, we touched on it before, but it's kind of an international. The people that are in it are from all different parts. Right? They're not all from Cleveland, are they?
No, not everybody, but in some cases it might be Pittsburgh or New York, and I think with our leader, Olivier, he lives in Canada.
In Montreal.
In Montreal, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a wonderful show. So if anybody gets a chance to get to Bath, Ohio, make sure you do. And the date again on that?
That is the 11th of August, and then Cullis Hall here in Cleveland on the 12th.
On the 12th. How can people get tickets for it?
Just go on to our website, www.apollosfire.org.
And typically today, nobody wants to use a phone number. No,
The box office number and everything is there as well.
everything is on that. But supposing somebody didn't have a computer, how would they do it all?
They would have to bring up the box office.
They'd have to ring the box office, and I see you
I'm
in your
about to
pocket.
give you the-
and
Rooting through there.
pocket.
The telephone number, which is, I need my glasses.
So Apollo's Fire number, no, that's okay, is 216-320-0012. There is a 1-800 number, 1-800-314-2535, extension 3. It's Apollo's Fire.
Okay.
Awesome.
Great show. I know Eddie and JC would definitely recommend it.